stranger as long as they felt like it was the right thing. They're a breed apart. And they need to be, because they need to be held to a higher standard. They need to be able to contain and control their emotions better than the average person. They need to be trained well enough so that rather than letting their emotions control their decision-making process when they get into the heat of the moment, they need to rely on their training. They need to fall back into an automatic mode. Take emotion and thinking out of the scenario. I don't know, that sounds counterintuitive. I'm typically not the kind of person saying that thinking needs to be taken out, but there are certain situations where you just need to react. Because it's the best thing. Trust the training. In most places, the training is not only adequate, but is appropriate. I was getting busted up by this person because they're all about the police state. And had she tuned in earlier to the show and heard me talking about the dangers of that, maybe she would have felt a little happier and may have even been a little more open to the idea. But it isn't just this threat of a police state. Is there a potential threat upcoming? Yes, there definitely is. We need to be aware of it, we need to be watching for it, and we need to be talking about it. And again, just like where I was thanking you as the listener earlier for sharing this show, you need to be a vocal voice yourself. Whether you're a host of your own podcast or your own terrestrial broadcasting show, or if you're just somebody who occasionally has a conversation with people, you need to be a voice for common sense, and you need to be a voice for pulling people together, and you need to be speaking up when you think somebody is off track. You don't have to be adversarial, but you need to speak up, because otherwise you're just as complicit. I think I've already told the story here on the show about my Facebook friend who's supporting Hillary Clinton. You know, my question, and I try to ask it in a way that doesn't sound condescending or like I'm overreaching. My question, plain and simple, why? Why are you supporting Hillary Clinton? And I don't ask it to be a smart aleck. I don't ask it to be a pain in the ass, although I'm sure that's probably the way it comes across just the same, because they know my leanings. There's not too many people that don't know me. Even the Facebook friends that know my name at this point, they know the kind of things I'm constantly posting. Most of them have made the connection between my personal page and the Tap Into the Truth page at this point. Now, it's not like I've made it a mystery. My feelings, my views, fairly well known. And, you know, and also I share a lot of other news type stories at the Tap Into the Truth Facebook page, sometimes science stories, sometimes off the wall stuff, because everybody needs a break from the political every now and then. But I ask the question why, because I want them to think about, why are you supporting the person you're supporting? Had a conversation, again, I was talking about how my ideal Republican ticket upcoming, and kudos to Ben Carson for getting in the race today, by the way. I don't think he's ready to be president. I think he could be a good president at some point down the road. If he's intent on following a political path, I could see at some point down the road, but I don't think he's ready. I don't think he has his full platform pulled together just yet. And I think by the time people are going to make up their mind about who they're going to vote for, that it'll probably be too late to pull that platform together. But make no mistake about it, I mean, Ben Carson, incredibly bright man. He's a very brilliant neurosurgeon, capable of doing things that I could never do. And he understands common sense, I think, for the most part. He has managed to step in it a few times, but at any rate, I digress, and I'll get back off of that. I know Mike Huckabee is supposed to announce this week. Former Hewlett-Packard CEO, I can't think of her name right off. She's supposed to be officially announcing too. And by the way, what is the deal with having to announce that you're going to announce? What happened to the days of just having a press conference and saying, okay, that's it, I'm in? Why can't you just do that? I wouldn't think that would be that hard. But anyway, let me digress back to my point I was trying to make. One of the regular listeners over at the BTR show is a lady by the name of Mary. She's been listening since the very early days. She came across the show, and, you know, she's really enjoyed listening to me babble for whatever amount of time I'm babbling, whatever I choose to talk about. And she's usually one of the ringleaders keeping activity going in the chat room. Her and another lady Michelle, probably two of the most loyal listeners to the show, and those two ladies are bouncing around. They're spending, I don't know how much time they spend away from BTR, quite honestly. You know, they may be single-handedly keeping every conservative host over there in an audience. Well, I mean, maybe not everyone, but they're pretty selective about who they're listening to. Some of the other shows, they listen to some really great shows, so by being on their list of people that they listen to, I feel like I'm in pretty good company, so I must be doing something right. And I'm very appreciative. But I mentioned that my idea of a perfect ticket that would come out of this would be a Scott Walker, Ted Cruz ticket. Well, Mary actually is very much against Ted Cruz. And so we were basically having this conversation. That's the great thing about having a conversation with folks that are reasonably like-minded. You know, I expressed the things that I like about Ted, and she expressed all the reasons why she didn't like Ted, and we both went away from it feeling like, understanding that, okay, so we don't agree on this. That doesn't mean that, suddenly we can't be friends. That's the kind of nonsense the political world is in right now. The phrase has become letting the enemy of the perfect becoming the enemy of the good. I don't think that really exists. We've got some people that have a litmus test. We've got some folks that are out there decrying against a certain candidate because of a certain issue. But that's what the primary season is all about. Get your concerns out there. Express them. You're not being an enemy of the perfect. You're just wanting to make sure that as many people as possible know as much about the candidates as possible, and that's the way it ought to be. Let there be blood on the ground, figuratively speaking. So I know somebody now, Tim calls for violence in the Republican primary. No, that's not what I said, y'all. But figuratively speaking, let there be blood on the ground. Let these guys go at each other. Let the chips fall where they may. And let the best person, whether it be a woman, a former CEO, for example, or a man, whether he be Hispanic, Marco Rubio, perhaps, or if it be some old crazy libertarian guy from Kentucky, Mr. Paul, whoever it may be, who rises above the fray, just please, my conservative friends, let us pick someone this time that's actually conservative. Let us ignore the Mike Huckabees and the Jeb Bushes, who are going to raise a ton of money, but are every bit as progressive as the folks on the left that we're trying to fight. Let us choose someone who will stand on principles, who will reach across the aisle, not because they have to make things happen, but because they'll use the bully pulpit that is the office of the president to reach out to the American people, and the American people will drag the other people kicking and screaming along with. That's what happened under Reagan. It wasn't Reagan that made all the good stuff happen. It was the American people supporting Reagan's message. Reagan was smart enough to know to go to the people, make sure that all the people were listening, not just the Republicans, not just the socially conservative, not just the evangelical community. He reached out there. There was a whole group of people that are still referred to as Reagan Democrats. He reached those people too because he spoke truth. He reached out on American values, and he had a positive, optimistic message. That America's brightest days were not behind her, but in front of her. That's what we need. And that's a tall order right now, because you look at these situations. The police officer in New York who was shot over the weekend, he died today, succumbed to the injuries of being shot in the head. We have riots going on in Baltimore. Things seem to have calmed down a bit, and then flaming back up. You got people on both sides of the political spectrum that are trying to politicize it and take advantage of it. You've got the tinfoil hat crowd, and that's not an insult, by the way. But you got the tinfoil hat crowd that are pointing back to that second year, the first term of office for the occupier, back when that executive order got signed that made it easier for martial law to get put in place. You got the tinfoil hat folks pointing to that, and then turning around and saying, we warned you then that this might happen. Is right now it's looking like they might want martial law. They might be whipping it up to try and get exactly that. I'm not saying that's what I think is happening, but I am saying that I don't think you can completely discount that at this point, because it sure looks that way. We've got to find a way to come together. I think I'm finally starting to calm down. I'm starting to feel more like myself. We've got to find a way to reach out to our fellow Americans, and we have got to realize that if you're the mayor of a major city, you cannot sit back and let people destroy businesses and private property of your citizens. You may feel like you're not in a position where you can stop it, but you sure as heck can do everything in your power to stop it, and you should. That's your responsibility. Ma'am, I'm sorry, you're in over your head. You shouldn't be the mayor of any city. If your idea is then to refer to rioters as thugs, and then 24 hours later turn around and apologize to the rioters, I'm so sorry. I was just frustrated. I shouldn't have called you that. That's a bad word. You don't belong in the mayor's office. You're not only incompetent, but you're incapable, which actually means the same thing. But you're also mealy-mouthed and spineless. How's that? Now I'm back to name calling. Just when I thought I was getting past that. You don't belong in the mayor's office. Al Sharpton, you do not belong in Baltimore. Get the hell out. Last broadcast before this one, it tells you how long I've been out. The title was Al Sharpton is going on a hunger strike. Now, as we looked at that, we saw it was all BS from the beginning. There was no actual hunger strike going to happen anyway. We're going to break up into groups, and we're going to alternate days where we don't eat. Well, I'm so happy that he was able to dispense with that, because the whole purpose of that was to try and get the new nominee for Attorney General put in place. Well, that's happened now. So the threat to the hunger strikes over. So, Al, I'm so glad that you're no longer going to have to worry about whether the one group that you were in was having to have a day where you weren't going to eat. Because I got to tell you, since you lost all that weight, Al, I don't know how many days you can go without eating. You're thin, man. You don't look healthy, you're so thin. But Al, please stop with the race baiting. Please stop. We've had enough. You can find another way to make money at this point. Can you not keep your job at MSNBC?